Hey everybody, welcome back to Nerd News Today. I'm Matthew, and on today's episode, it's time for another statue review. This one coming to us courtesy of Diamond Select, and this is a character I don't think I've seen from Diamond Select in statue form, maybe ever, if not in a very, very long time. And that's because today we are taking a look at Joe Fixit. This is the Grey Hulk, or rather the alter ego of the Grey Hulk. Now, I'm pretty sure that Diamond has done maybe a premiere collection of this character, which would have been a lot more money. We're talking about probably the 200 to 250, maybe even 300, because he's a bigger character. So much higher price point. But this being a PVC figure diorama statue, a Marvel Gallery diorama statue to be precise, that means that he's going to be a little bit more affordable and under $100 for this big guy. The question is Joe Fixit worth spending your big hard bucks on? Well, let's take a closer look and find out. And first things first, we're going to talk about this packaging of Joe Fixit here. And it's like all the typical boxes we've seen from Diamond Select in the past, which is a very large, very square box with a whole lot of open windows. You guys can see that in the middle right now. In the front, we have a massive window that lets you see right inside the packaging. And as we rotate it around, you will see we've got windows on the left side and quick spin the other way, windows on the right. And as always, we have that handy dandy Diamond Select sunroof. And the back of the box, similarly, is like every other statue we've seen before from Diamond. Again, I say this in all these reviews, and that's because they kind of have a formula, and it works. And in the case of Joe Fixit, it's no different. So we've got a bio about the character, we have an image of the statue, and we have some credits as well. The bio itself is actually pretty informative. It tells us a little bit of the history of Joe Fixit and the Grey Hulk, how they kind of did their own thing, and how Grey Hulk ended up in Las Vegas working essentially as a bouncer and bodyguard, which is kind of a fun thing for the Hulk to even be doing in the first place. It doesn't really mention when this is from. This is like a mid-'80s kind of character. I think that's when Joe Fixit first popped up, like mid to late '80s. But none of these boxes really ever give you a year or a timeline because, let's face it, folks, comics are essentially timeless anyway. But most important, on the bottom of the box, we have the credits for who made this piece. And this Joe Fixit was designed by Caesar and sculpted by Alterton, a pair of artists who have done a lot of work together on the Marvel series. They've done stuff back when they were doing DC with Diamond. They've been doing these kind of comic book characters for a long time, and they always produce something very exciting and very unique. So yeah, I'm very, very excited, and, well, I can't just say the word unique, but I'm very, very happy and excited to take a look at this big Joe Fixit right now. And yeah, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get our big old Hulk out of the packaging and take a closer look at him from all angles. All right, so we got our Grey Hulk now, our Joe Fixit out of the packaging. Let's dive in now, because this is a real behemoth of a statue. And we've looked at a lot of Hulks in the past, and they've all been quite enormous in stature, but also enormous in detail and design. And Joe Fixit is no different than any of those. So I like to start these reviews usually in the same place, which is the head. But I do want to give my initial impressions, though, which is this is a pretty cool looking piece, and it's got a lot of personality. But is it right for this character? Is it right for this piece? We're going to dive into that a little bit right now. But first off, let's focus on that head. And the likeness for Joe Fixit, I think, is very signature Grey Hulk and very Joe Fixit. It's got a lot of personality. It has a lot of attitude. And I think that's really the biggest thing I get from this particular statue is an attitude that we don't get in other Hulk statues. The average Hulk statue is usually very angry and ragey and gnarling and snarling and whatever. Whereas this one here is like smirking in a way that's not like I'm going to smash you. It's more like come at me, bro. And even the pose kind of dictates that, as we're going to get into in a little bit here. But I think it's a really good facial structure. It reads like the classic Hulk as well. We've got the big brow, we've got the giant teeth, we have the nose. Everything here, it says Hulk. The gray color also, by the way, is just spot on. I'd say it's pretty darn close to being comic book accurate. But there are a few little oddities here, and that kind of falls into the quality control section of this piece here. And it's one of those buyer beware kind of moments. So the two things to really watch for are his eyes and his teeth. So with the eyes, in my Joe Fixit here, we got kind of like a Perry Saturn thing happening, if you know, you know, where one eye is kind of going one way, another eye is going a different way. So, I mean, in reality, the Hulk is actually looking at himself from all angles. He's doing this toy review on his own, but I'm just here to kind of help guide it along. So that's a little bit of a weird thing. It's not terrible, because luckily those eyes are kind of sunken back, and they're definitely hidden a bit by the brim of the hat here. That part's pretty good. It hides that little thing, and it's not even that big of a deal. I'm not going to like dock a ton of points for it. It's noticeable if you notice it. What I notice more is actually the teeth. And I think what went wrong here is maybe someone got a little too happy with their shade paint, because we've got, you know, these big white Hulk teeth, and then they're just covered in schmutz, because the Hulk is a New Yorker at the end of the day, I guess. He's just covered in schmutz, why not? So he's got all this kind of like gray stuff on his teeth that is really just the shade paint that dried up in a spot where it shouldn't have dried up. That shading paint is what's going to go into the recesses of his teeth to kind of help those pop out, so that, you know, someone who's painted this isn't going to paint a black line for every single individual tooth. The shade paint will kind of just fall into those recesses and make them pop out. But unfortunately, if that shade paint kind of just sits on a surface, it dries up on it. And that's what's happening with this Hulk. So again, if you're looking to buy this piece and you have it in a comic shop or a store near you, go ahead and take a good look at his mouth and his eyes and make sure that they are in the right spot and that they're painted very cleanly. Doesn't bother me a ton, but the teeth, I will say, are definitely a little bit more noticeable. But as we start to kind of pull out and look at the statue as a whole, I don't really know if I care as much about it. I mean, yeah, it is something I will take a look at, but I'm kind of more invested in the statue as a whole from head to toe, and there is a lot of head to toe with the Gray Hulk. So, like I mentioned before, the mouth to me says attitude, the face to me says attitude, and this pose really has a lot of that attitude that you don't expect from a Hulk. We know that Hulk is the strongest, but he's not always the smartest. But in the case of Joe Fixit, he's a lot more clever than we expect him to be, and this pose really says that. So keep in mind too that this is a Gray Hulk. He's going to be smaller than most of the other Hulk statues that we looked at in the past. Those have all been pretty big. This is still a big piece, but Gray Hulk in this era especially was a little bit smaller because he was a little bit smarter. That was the trade-off, the size. But in this one here, he's still pretty massive. He's still very jacked up and very big, but it's kind of hidden among the suit. We still get the size and the girth of Gray Hulk, but we get the class of Joe Fixit. And that is this really cool, wonderfully painted blue suit. It's like cobalt blue, a lot of cool shade on here as well. There are some different colors here. We have the darker blue along with the more black gray shades and tones to help with making this guy pop up a little bit. One of the things I really like about it, again, going back to this pose, is how he's kind of like thrusting his chest out. And when I first saw the statue, I'm not going to lie, I was a little weirded out by it because I was like, what kind of Hulk pose is this? I mean, again, I'm used to seeing Hulk punch and smash and crash and destroy things. This Hulk, it's a very different feeling because it's got that attitude. And that's what this pose is. He's like thrusting out his chest almost like a gorilla, if you want to think about it that way. It's very animalistic in a way that we don't normally see from the Hulk. And even the pose, him stepping forward, putting all of his weight on this lead foot here. This is like a take charge kind of pose. And more so, it's a Hulk that's in control of himself. And that makes this even a little bit scary if you think about the story behind this piece here. We go into the hands, which I love. The hands are covered in these white gloves. Very dapper, very demure for Hulk. But they're very expressive too. It's like clutching at the air. And again, it's just saying, come on, like you can't do anything to hurt me. What are you going to do? And they're also really poised for battle, but not just like closed fists like you get with a normal Hulk. These are open hands. He is plotting. He's going to grab you. He's going to toss you around. He's thinking about something that you don't know yet. He's 2 steps ahead of you. And that's unusual for a Hulk statue. Legs, very strong, very thick like tree trunks. Just nice detail. I really love the red pop of the tie here. And again, the colors are very kind of muted, but in a good, nice way. You know, we got this blue. It helps pop them a lot. We have the white that offsets it. Gray, which is a very neutral kind of tone, but it works within the darker shades of this blue here. So it's a very unified piece as far as color goes. And speaking of, that continues as we work our way down to the base. And the base is that real, very flat kind of gray tone, but we've got all these really cool jutting angular shapes that very much contrast all the round elements that we have with the Hulk. Because the Hulk is always a very round kind of character. He's very thick, he's very muscular, it's very organic. So to kind of offset that, we have all these jutting out shapes of structures underneath him. Case in point, that very lovely roulette wheel that is right between his legs, broken into a few different pieces here. And that kind of reiterates the circular, spherical, rounder parts of who the Hulk is. And likewise, too, we have some of those pops of red color that appear in this roulette wheel, and that is repeated on top of that tie that's on his chest there. And so those two elements do kind of tie it together from head to toe, because otherwise it's gray and blue. That's really about it as far as the shades. But having those bits of red there peeking through help tell your eye where to go to look at this piece from a distance. So as always, Caesar, Alterton, they know what they're doing. I trust in them, and they did a wonderful job with this piece, top to bottom. One other note that I want to make, too, is the weight of this piece, and this being a Hulk, it is hefty, but because, again, it's Gray Hulk, a little bit smaller, a little bit less hefty than normal, and that's a good thing, because normally these Hulk pieces, you could, like, murder a person with them, just drop it on their head, and that's, only murders in the building. No, only murders with Gray Hulk. But this time around, it's a lot more manageable, so I appreciate that. And really, overall, gotta tell you guys, I'm digging this Hulk a lot more than I expected I would. I've enjoyed all the Hulks that we've gotten in the past from Diamond Select, and this one, I wasn't too sure what to expect. And to be completely upfront, when I saw it in the box, I was kind of off put by it. It wasn't really doing it for me. I think the box kind of hid a lot of the details. It really kind of obscured a lot of him because it was so dark in there, because it's such a large box too. But seeing him out in the open, very much blown away by it. It's a very, very cool piece and a very unusual one because there really isn't a lot of Joe Fixit stuff out there. So it's a really cool and interesting way to have this character out there. And I'm going to definitely give it a good recommend. Now, I will add, as far as price goes, typically a PVC piece from Diamond will be now about 60 to 70. Because he's a little bit bigger, he's going to be closer to 100, probably around the $90 price point. But depending where you buy it, you can get them from different price points that'll be around there. Amazon might have them for a little bit cheaper. And speaking of, if you plan on buying this Hulk, I'm going to have a few different links in the description of this video below to help you find the best deal possible for it. So that's our look at the Marvel Gallery diorama of Joe Fixit coming to us from Diamond Select. Real knockout piece. And really, would you expect anything less from the Hulk? I don't think so. And I especially wouldn't expect anything less from the dynamic duo of Caesar and Alterton. So until next time, I'm Matthew. This has been Nerd News Today. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like, do all the YouTube things that you're supposed to do to help us help you. And we'll see you guys next time. And I'd say Hulk smash, but that's not really Joe Fixit's catchphrase. I don't remember what it is. So go fix yourself.